Hi, everybody. It's Catie Harris, and I hope you are really excited for this topic, which is aging in reverse. It's going to be a little bit of a beefy topic, so I do apologize for that, but there is a lot to know and a lot to learn. So I'm going to walk you through the areas of concern that we'll focus on. And because the solutions are pretty straightforward, you'll have compelling, let's say, evidence of why you should engage in specific lifestyle changes, because I think that's really, really important. So I'm going to break this presentation down into three distinct parts. And the first part, this is the beefy part, that we're going to talk about how we age, so you can better understand why we do the things that we're going to do later, because part two is going to look at how we assess you specifically, right? So these are generalities. Part one is generalities, like this is what happens as we age, but part two is about, well, how do we know how you specifically are aging? So how that affects you personally, as opposed to just, an interesting general understanding of science and life and that kind of stuff. And then part three is going to look at how we use longevity assessments to keep people as healthy and optimized, followed by a few case studies. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. And the question always is, aging in reverse. And my son says to me, that's not possible. Is it possible? And how is it done? It is possible. And I'm going to explain to you how it's done in the coming slides. So age reversal is certainly, it's in its infancy, right? We can only go back so far. For instance, my biological age is 3 years younger than my chronological age. Can I get back to the age of 20 and how I looked then? Not exactly, not yet. But once I hit the peak biological age, I can slow that progress down, right? So I'm not aging quickly. I can slow the whole aging process. Have you ever seen somebody who is 70, but they look like they're 50, right? That is age reversal. And maybe you think it's just good genes. And yes, that's certainly part of it, but I think it's an overblown part of it, because genes are a very small piece of the puzzle. Gene expression is largely influenced by what we're going to talk about next. And that is in your control. So age reversal and slowdown is working, but there's a lot that can be improved on for sure. In the next 5 to 10 years, I think you're going to see like an explosion of an understanding of how the body works and what causes it to break down. So what I'm talking about today is really, it's let's say 30,000 foot view of what we know. And each one of these topics literally could easily fit into a 3-volume, text series. So it's not important that you know and understand everything that I'm going to talk about. What is important is that you'll see a recurring theme happening, and each, adds that there's going to be dysfunctions that happen because of each condition that we're going to talk about. So what we want to do is prevent those things from happening in the first place. And then at the end, I'll summarize everything and explain how we test for and measure each dysfunction, if that's even possible at this point, and how to customize your own approach. All right. Okay, so what happens when we age? Well, these are the things that we're going to talk about in this lecture. So cellular senescence, as cells accumulate damage from factors like free radicals, UV radiation from the sun, toxin, they enter a state of senescence where they stop dividing but remain active. These senescent cells release inflammatory signals contributing to tissue damage, inflammation, and accelerating the aging process. DNA, we all know what DNA is, and errors in DNA repair can lead to mutations. This contributes to cellular dysfunction and increased methylation. Loss of immune response, the immune system weakens, making the body more vulnerable to infection, diseases, and slower recovery. Decline in mitochondrial function. Mitochondria is all the rage at this point. This is your powerhouse of all your cells, and your mitochondria, as you age, produce less energy and generate more harmful free radicals, leading to cellular fatigue. Loss of proteostasis, it's a big word. We're going to talk about this a little bit more, but it's misfolded proteins accumulating. Stem cell exhaustion is just the stem cells that your body makes. They lose their ability to regenerate. Chronic inflammation leads to less efficient processes. It's also referred to as inflammaging. And in menopause, we call it inflammopause because you are in chronic inflammation. So we'll talk about what happens if you do not treat inflammation. Hormone changes. Hormones are the foundation, honestly, of longevity and good health. And as they decline, they will affect metabolism, muscle mass, collagen, and energy levels, and then decrease metabolic efficiency. This is huge. I mean, really, that could be a multi-day topic, metabolic dysfunction. All right, so let's talk about your zombie cells. So you may have heard of this. This is kind of a lot of influencers talk about zombie cells, but the technical name is cellular senescence, and that's when the body stops dividing and growing, and the cells, they just don't die. So you can see on the left, the senescent cell looks way different than a healthy cell that's functioning properly. While senescent cells can't they can help prevent damaged cells from becoming cancerous. When too many of them build up, they start to release chemicals that cause inflammation and harm surrounding cells. So you can see the appearance of the one on the left. It's irregular. It accumulates damaged proteins. It sends out inflammatory signals, and it has a stressed and enlarged nucleus. And that's distorted due to DNA damage. So they're not, we don't routinely look for senescent cells in laboratory tests. You can, in research settings, we can see them. It's just, they can be quantified in the body if you want to do specialized testing. But mostly senescent cells, they're still in the research stage. So this is something you are going to see on the horizon coming up. People are very interested in this, and they want to know how many senescent cells they have. Because imagine if we could tell you, and then we could start therapy and then show you the progress that you are making. That would be amazing. But in the meantime, because we don't have that, how do we know if you have cellular senescence? You're going to have one of these disease states, right? So if these disease states are present, then you definitely have cellular senescence. So Alzheimer's disease and neurodegeneration, senescent cells in the brain release inflammatory signals, and they contribute to forming Alzheimer's. And not by itself, there's a couple others, and you're going to see all of these conditions kind of happen in groups or clusters. You don't just have cellular senescence and nothing else. Osteoarthritis, the senescent cells will accumulate in joints and cartilage, again, releasing inflammatory molecules. In cardiovascular disease, senescent cells promote atherosclerosis, which becomes narrowed hardened arteries, and they build up plaque, which increases your risk of heart attack, stroke, and hypertension. And senescence is also linked to heart failure. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, it's accumulation of senescent cells in the lung tissue. Diabetes, they accumulate in the pancreas, in the liver, they accumulate in the liver, they create fibrosis and lead to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which can progress to cirrhosis and liver failure in severe cases. In chronic kidney disease, they accumulate in the kidney tissues. In cancer, cellular senescence can initially act as a defense to prevent cancer by stopping damaged cells from dividing. But they then create a pro-inflammatory environment that promotes growth of nearby cancerous cells, because cancer cells don't act like normal cells. They actually thrive in conditions where other cells don't do well. So this can lead to the progression of cancers such as breast cancer, prostate cancer, and others. Sarcopenia, this is a fancy word for muscle loss. So senescent cells can contribute to muscle loss, and particularly in strength, leading to weakness and frailty, which is the number one cause of death in our elderly patients, because they're frail, they don't have any muscle mass. When they fall, it's devastating. Photoaging is accumulation of UV damage, which causes wrinkles, loss of elasticity, and signs of skin aging. Immune system decline, that's immunosenescence, these words, which is an accumulation of senescent immune cells. Fibrotic diseases, you can see pulmonary fibrosis, liver fibrosis, renal fibrosis, and age-related inflammation. So it's a lot, right? It's a lot to take in. So how do we stop it? How do we get rid of cellular senescence? Because it sounds bad, and we don't want it. So there are senolytics, so drugs that remove senescent cells. Senolytics are a class of drugs that specifically target and eliminate senescent cells. And there's some promising senolytics in research, including quercetin. So quercetin is an over-the-counter, and you can get this. Just make sure you're getting your supplements from a really reputable source, because there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, crappy supplements out there that don't have what they say they have in them. There's also, if you want to use something natural, strawberries have ficetine in it, which has shown senolytic activity. So eating strawberries, especially in the summer, is really, really good. And then we have peptides like FOXO4-DR1 that you can do, but it's way cheaper to just do quercetin or eat strawberries. Autophagy stimulation, it's a fancy word for removing zombie cells. So one of the ways that we do this is through intermittent fasting or caloric restriction, because these practices trigger autophagy and help the body remove damage or senescent cells, and exercise, right? This is one of the reasons. And I'm going to use this moment to point out that when you're in menopause, middle age, we're not exercising to lose weight. Okay. You are exercising for all the reasons that we're going to be talking about in this lecture today. You're exercising for longevity and to reverse the aging process. Exercise contributes very little to weight loss. So if you're trying to lose weight through exercise, it's going to be an uphill battle and very discouraging. But you do want to exercise, even if you're not losing weight, you want to exercise because physical activity will enhance autophagy, which is cell removal, particularly in the muscle tissues, reducing the risk of senescent cell buildup. Remember, we talked about sarcopenia, which is muscle loss. So you can prevent muscle loss by exercising, and what it's doing is removing zombie cells from your muscles. Reduce oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is a major cause of cellular damage and senescence. You can use antioxidants. You can consume food like this. Everything doesn't have to be a supplement. So berries, nuts, green leafy vegetables will help neutralize free radicals. And of course, avoid smoking and excessive alcohol. Although I would say there's no amount of alcohol that is good for you. Okay. So I know there's studies out there, and the studies found that it's the skins of the grape that are actually healthy, not the actual alcohol. So if you really want the benefits of what they talked about in the study, just eat grapes. Healthy diet. A balanced anti-inflammatory diet can prevent senescent cells from forming, such as a Mediterranean diet and nutrient-dense foods. Compounds such as resveratrol, curcumin, like turmeric, right, and green tea have been shown to combat cellular aging. Again, regular exercise, maintaining healthy mitochondria. So a lot of people ask me about NAD, and yeah, NAD is great. It helps with cellular senescence, but there's way cheaper ways to do it. And CoQ10, coenzyme Q10, is really great. So if you have a supplement like CoQ10, you can do that. If you have red light therapy, that'll help with mitochondrial dysfunction as well. Minimize chronic inflammation, avoid excessive sun exposure. My caveat here is that you need UV light exposure every day. Okay, I'm actually the type of person that doesn't use any sunscreen because I need my vitamin D levels are very low. I need sun. Morning and evening sun are the best. Wake up, go outside, get some sunlight. What you don't want to do is bake for 8 hours in the sun. And I know that's really tempting when you're on vacation and down the shore, but you do need sunlight. And if you are putting sunblock on constantly, you're not absorbing any sun. And then you have to get vitamin D exogenously from some other source. So sunlight is really, really important. And the other problem I have with sunscreen is that it's notorious for having toxic chemicals in it. So if you are buying sunscreen, make sure that there's not carcinogens in it, because that's usually what it's in. So yeah, these things are really important. Hormonal imbalances can contribute to cellular dysfunction for sure. So maintaining balanced levels of healthy lifestyle choices. This will help remove accumulated senescent cells. All right, we will pick up the pace a little bit because you're going to start hearing some of the same stuff again and again. But DNA damage, it's one of the key factors that drives aging. DNA is like an instruction manual of how our cells are supposed to function. And when that gets damaged, it can lead to problems in how cells grow, repair, and perform their jobs. So here's how it works. If you start getting mistakes in DNA, over time, due to exposures such as excessive UV radiation or pollution, or even just a normal aging process, DNA gets damaged. Normally, your cells will fix this, but as we age, that repair process becomes less efficient. When DNA isn't properly repaired, it causes cells to malfunction. And this could mean the cells grow out of control, such as in cancer. If the damage is too severe, the cells go into senescence, right? We just talked about zombie cells. So if you have that, this could be part of it. And then as the cells accumulate with more and more damage, then it manifests itself as tissue damage and then organ damage. Telomeres, you may have heard of these. They are the protective caps at the end of chromosomes that prevent the loss of important genetic information during cell division, and they get shortened as a result of DNA damage. So the impact of shortened telomeres basically triggers a cell to enter into senescence, right? That zombie state. And they are also very particularly vulnerable to oxidative stress. So maybe when you were younger, you could tolerate some oxidative stress. Now it's causing your telomeres to shorten, and it's activating more and more cell senescence. The shortening telomeres are also associated with aging because they limit the ability to regenerate and repair tissues. And then finally, increase in methylation. Methylation, that's like little tags that are added to our DNA. And as we age, these tags can build up in the wrong places like tissue. It's almost like the dust, like a lot of dust settling on a book. And over time, it gets harder and harder to read the words because the dust is in the way. And if the message can't be properly read, then it can't be properly transcribed. Imagine trying to, you're not able to move the dust, but you have to write the message down, or, some of these scrolls that we find from the ancient times and only part of the scroll is there, right? So if the message can't be properly read and transcribed, then we can't necessarily carry out the initial intent. So then the DNA starts making little changes, and those little changes can cause major issues. And I also think of it like Whisper Down the Lane. If you ever played that, you say something, and by the time it gets to the fifth person, the message is completely different. All right. So what are some of the disease states from DNA damage? Cancer, for sure. DNA mutations cause cells to grow uncontrollably and leads to all different types of cancers. Our neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, your premature disorders. These are more rare genetic disorders like Hutchinson-Gilford progeria syndrome and Werner syndrome. You have immune disorders, cardiovascular diseases, because DNA damage in vascular cells promote atherosclerosis. Diabetes, oxidative stress, and DNA damage in pancreatic beta cells impair insulin production. Your chronic inflammatory diseases will result in oxidative DNA damage. A lot of you have heard that term. It's a great marketing thing that people say all the time, but it's very real, and it can cause diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease, and other autoimmune conditions. For younger people, DNA damage can occur in sperm or eggs, leading to infertility, again, COPD and lung disease, skin aging, and cancers. So how do we stop DNA damage? Well, kind of like before, limit sun exposure. So not 8 hours. You only need 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon, and wearing protective hats, sunglasses, long sleeves to shield from UV rays. You're looking for moderation. Okay. Not excessiveness. Avoid smoking. And I would say quit alcohol as well, because like I said, there is no amount of alcohol that is okay. So if you do drink alcohol, you just know that you're contributing to your aging process. If that's acceptable, then go right ahead. reduce exposure to environmental toxins, especially chemicals that are found in pesticides, industrial pollutants, and cleaning products, which becomes extremely difficult because they are so prevalent in our society. We almost have to learn question isn't how do we minimize, how do we adapt to these exposures, because we're constantly being bombarded by toxins. And your air quality, I have an air purifier in my house. I love it. I have it on every floor. Because the polluted air comes inside and creates poor air quality in your home, which leads to a lot of conditions like asthma or allergies. Consume antioxidant-rich foods such as fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices. Maintaining a healthy diet, particularly whole foods. Omega-3 fatty acids are great for inflammation or oxidative stress. Folate, B12, exercise regularly because this reduces oxidative stress and inflammation, which can prevent DNA damage. Get enough sleep. Quality sleep allows your body to repair DNA damage. If you're not sleeping 7 to 9 hours per night, you are not supporting the body's natural healing process, and DNA damage is not getting repaired. And this is a huge one, especially as we age. Sleep gets harder and harder to do because of stress, because of lack of hormones. Avoid processed foods and sugar, which increase inflammation and oxidative stress. Support your mitochondrial health. You can use the CoQ10, NAD, or just red light therapy is awesome for mitochondrial health. Boost DNA with supplements such as grapes. Resveratrol it can be a supplement, but it's also what is found in grapes and then red wine. But if you just want the resveratrol, eating grapes will do it. Turmeric is amazing for protecting against DNA damage. I know there's some turmeric. Curcumin is the compound that's in turmeric, but there's curcumin cancer protocols that are out there as well that are very interesting and being tested. Vitamin C and E are antioxidants, reducing oxidative damage in DNA. Maintaining a healthy weight. Obesity is linked to increased oxidative stress and chronic inflammation. Adipose tissue, fat tissue releases constant cytokines, inflammatory cytokines. Limit your radiation exposure, which medical imaging, so x-rays, CTs, even mammograms are all radiation exposure. So reduce exposure to electromagnetic fields, particularly your telephone. So electronic devices, if you're constantly have electronic devices on you, it's disrupting your electromagnetic field, which is much lower. So your personal electromagnetic field is in line with the Earth. And your electronic devices are much more toxic. So using a PEMF mat, if you've ever heard of a pulsed electromagnetic therapy, a field mat. I have one of those. I used it with my red light therapy, and it resets your electromagnetic field to that of the Earth, and that's what you need. Because a lot of us work in buildings, or we live in the city, right? So having all the concrete around us blocks our exposure to the Earth's magnetic field as well, and that's very damaging to the body. All right, so let's talk about the immune system. So as we age, the immune system undergoes several changes known as immunosenescence. At the heart of this is the thymus. So whether you know what the thymus is or not, it's a small organ. It's located behind the breastbone, and its key role is developing T cells, which are crucial for adaptive immunity, the part of the immune system that responds to specific pathogens. And as we age, that thymus gets smaller and smaller. When you're a baby, it's huge. And by the time you're 40, it's mostly fat, and it produces fewer and fewer T cells. The reduction in T cell weakens the body's ability to respond to new infections, making older adults vulnerable to diseases like the flu, pneumonia, and COVID-19, which is why they have to get vaccines. But imagine if you just replaced thymus, right? So that with thymus involution, which is where the thymus, really declines, the production of native T cells also declines. You have B cell decline, which is responsible for producing antibodies. So that also declines with age. You get chronic low-grade inflammation, that inflammaging You get impaired innate immunity. Innate immunity, that's your innate immune system, is your body's first line of defense. So key cells like natural killer cells, it sounds really dramatic, but NK cells and macrophages become less effective at recognizing and destroying pathogens. NK cells, which play a role in detecting and killing virus, infected, and cancerous cells, become less responsive. So there's a lot of research in natural killer cells. You also have reduced response to vaccines. So you have, with a decrease in T and B cells and a weaker antibody production, you have lower vaccine efficacy. Okay, that's why they recommend older adults require higher doses of vaccines or booster shots, such as a high-dose flu vaccine, to achieve adequate protection. Then, because your immune system's weakened, you have delayed wound healing, and that becomes a huge problem for infection, sepsis, increased risk of autoimmune diseases, so where the immune system starts attacking healthy tissue, and that can lead to conditions such as rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, multiple sclerosis. So, with thymus shrinkage, you reduce T cell production, you have decreased function of existing T and B cells, chronic low-grade infection, innate immune system becomes less effective, and lower wound healing. So you won't be surprised to find out that diseases from a thymus reduction or involution is a weakened immune response. Cancer, autoimmune, immunosenescence, which leads to new infections, the inability to fight infections, poor vaccine efficacy, chronic infections, reactivation of latent infections. So your shingles are a reactivation of chickenpox, right? If you had chickenpox when you were younger, it can be reactivated as shingles, which is really painful. Chronic viral infections that persist or get worse, so maybe the cold that never goes away. Poor response to vaccines, increased inflammation, decreased wound healing, bone marrow and blood disorders. All of this stuff can happen with immunosenescence. So how do we improve it? Well, exercise. Again, we're not exercising to lose weight, but we are exercising to enhance your immune function. This promotes healthy circulation, reduces inflammation, and improves the efficiency of immune cells. Activities like walking, cycling, resistance training. Be cautious with intense exercise without sufficient recovery, because it will suppress the immune system. Really intense exercise in middle age is not good. It's not healthy, and it's actually not really great for, if you look at extreme athletes, they're not always the healthiest bunch, to be honest. So healthy diet, fruits and vegetables, healthy fats, lean proteins, probiotics. Get enough sleep. Quality sleep is essential for immune health. Your body produces and releases cytokines, which are proteins that will help fight infection and inflammation. Now, there are regular cytokines and there are inflammatory cytokines. So the body clearly is releasing the good cytokines that are helping to fight infection and reduce inflammation. It's adipose tissue, that fat tissue, that will release inflammatory cytokines. There's multiple different kinds of them, just for clarification here. Manage stress. Stress is extremely powerful. Chronic stress weakens the immune system by increasing the production of cortisol. Cortisol is very, very difficult to overcome, right? People gain weight, they can't sleep, they have inflammation. If you are under chronic stress, you're going to be very, very difficult to keep you living longer and healthy. You have to manage the stress. Like I can't stress this enough. Excuse the pun, but practice meditation, deep breathing, yoga. You have to carve out time for yourself. It's vital. And if you think you don't have time, you have to, because it is part of healthy living. You don't want to live a long life and be demented in a nursing home. You want to be strong and healthy. So staying hydrated, also a good thing, because this drinking enough water supports the lymphatic system, which is crucial for transporting immune cells through the body. So really important. Supportive supplements, D, C, zinc, elderberry, probiotics. Echinacea is really nice as an herbal supplement. vaccinations, whichever ones you're doing, maintaining a healthy weight, because obesity is linked to chronic low-grade infection, which can weaken the immune system. Avoid smoking and alcohol, reduce exposures to toxins as much as humanly possible. Now, there are some thymus boosting therapies. There are peptides like thymosin alpha-1 and thymosin beta-4 that are really great. They are peptides that will enhance your immune response and improve T cell functioning. There's a lot of research in regenerative medicine looking at stem cells to rejuvenate the thymus and to improve immune function. So more on that to come. Fasting and intermittent fasting stimulates autophagy, which we already talked about, which is removing dead cells or cells that should be dead, such as zombie cells. And cold exposure. So you have to be in good physical shape for this. If you are totally stressed out, please don't do cold exposure, because it's just going to stress the body even more. But short-term cold exposure for those of you who are metabolically optimized, cold showers or cryotherapy can boost your immune function. Otherwise, it's just going to stress your body out. So there's some simple, inexpensive ways to assess your immune system, getting your standard CBC, which is a complete blood count. If you go to your provider, everybody checks the CBC. It's just kind of a default lab. There's also a CRP and an ESR test that will test for the amount of inflammation in the body. Vitamin D is crucial for the immune system, and low levels are associated with impaired immune function. So you can get your vitamin D levels. And there's also immunoglobulins, which aren't routinely tested, but they're easy enough to get. And they might be a little bit on the expensive side, but it might be worth getting in specific cases. All right, so mitochondria. So as our mitochondria, as we age, the mitochondria start to decline, and mitochondria are the powerhouses in our body. So they basically produce energy, and without energy, you're fatigued. You have all kinds of issues. So they weaken with age. You can get weaker muscles, cognitive decline, because everything needs mitochondria. The more damage to the cells, it comes from free radicals, which leads to further dysfunction. So what conditions or diseases result from mitochondrial damage? Well, pretty much everything. So neurodegenerative disease, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, Huntington's, cardiovascular disease, heart failure, atherosclerosis, type 2 diabetes. Any muscular dystrophies come from mitochondrial myopathy, which is just weakness of or pathology of the muscle, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, cancer, mitochondrial diseases that are, they're pretty rare. But aging, age-related conditions, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, cognitive decline, even hearing loss. So mitochondrial dysfunction of the hair cells in the inner ear have been linked to age-related hearing loss. These cells require a lot of energy to process sound, and mitochondrial damage can lead to their degeneration. Kidney disease, liver disease. We've heard all of this, right? So what do we do? How do we prevent mitochondrial damage? Well, antioxidant foods, healthy fats. Mitochondria use fat for energy. So any of you guys out there that do athletic performance, that you might be testing for fat oxidation, whether your body is using fat to oxidate fuel for your body. If you are only using carb oxidation, you have dysfunctional mitochondria, and we can test that using just metabolic analysis, which is a breath test that we do at Philly Wellness Center. Exercise regularly, and intermittent fasting, caloric restriction. These help, again, with autophagy, which helps prevent mitochondrial damage. You want to reduce oxidative stress. You can use coenzyme Q10, so CoQ10. Alpha lipoic acid will help. There's way cheaper ways. So just vitamin C and E, getting enough of it in your diet, resveratrol, creatine, all these things help with mitochondrial damage. Optimize sleep, manage stress, limit exposure to environmental toxins, stay hydrated. Mitochondria rely on water to produce ATP, which is energy. So you have to drink water to keep your mitochondrial functioning. Cold therapy, if you're metabolically optimized, otherwise this will just stress your body out. Heat therapy, this is amazing. So this is easy enough to do. Saunas, hot baths, they will stimulate mitochondrial function. Heat stress promotes the production of what's called heat shock proteins, and they will help to repair mitochondria. Your thymosin alpha-1, NAD, red light therapy. How does red light therapy help? It uses low, or near infrared light to penetrate the skin, and it actually penetrates through the membrane of the mitochondria. And not many things do this, but red light does. And I know sometimes you might be sitting under a red light and you're like, nothing seems to be happening, but it is definitely penetrating through to the mitochondria and helping to repair it. If you use it with methylene blue is a synthetic compound with antioxidant properties, and it will improve it'll improve your mitochondria when they're damaged or dysfunctional, and it is amplified. The effects of methylene blue are amplified when used in conjunction with red light therapy. And I like to use all three together: red light therapy, methylene blue, and PEMF therapy. So I mentioned PEMF before, but PEMF therapy uses electromagnetic pulses to create low frequency waves that pass through the body. You can't feel it, you can't see it, and you're like, is this really working? But it is. I can promise you that NASA uses PEMF mats anytime they go into space, because you lose the Earth's magnetic field. And when they first sent people out into space, they were out there for like 20 minutes and they got really, really, really sick. And what they found out was that they didn't have the protection of the electromagnetic field. So now anytime anybody goes out into space, they have to create this electromagnetic field, and they use PEMF mats. And that has, it's really exploded, the PEMF mat therapy. They've been using it for like 50 years or however long we've been going to space. All right, so let's go on to protein. So I talked about proteostasis. That's just a fancy word to say how cells keep their proteins healthy and functioning properly. So you can see on the left, that is a nicely folded protein. And, you can see all the different parts of it, whereas the one on the right, despite the fact that it's not in color, it just looks like a jumbled mess. Okay, so those are called misfolded proteins. And misfolded proteins occur leading to the accumulation and dysfunction or toxic proteins. It causes impaired protein degradation, where damaged or unnecessary proteins aren't properly broken down, and protein aggregates cause a crap load of disease conditions. So we have type 2 diabetes. These are just some examples, but that's from the misfolding of the protein amylin in the pancreas. In cataracts, you have a misfolding of crystalline proteins. In the liver, you have alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, which is misfolded proteins. Osteoporosis is misfolding of collagen. Collagen's a protein. In Alzheimer's, you have a misfolding of tau proteins. And in celiac disease, you have misfolded gluten proteins. So once again, how do we prevent this? How do we stop the loss of proteostasis, right? So how do we stop misfolding of proteins? So we have autophagy stimulation, which is that, the removing of dead cells. And we've talked about a lot of ways to do that. Intermittent fasting, caloric restriction, even the ketogenic diet is actually really, really good for that. They've been doing tests of ketogenic diet in Alzheimer's disease and dementias, and have a lot of success with slowing the progress of those diseases down. And maintaining low insulin levels. This is really good. Low insulin levels is absolutely essential for weight loss, and it helps a lot with misfolded proteins. Let's see, exercise and natural compounds like curcumin and resveratrol. They boost proteasome activity. Heat shock proteins, which we talked about before, are activated with heat therapy, such as sauna, even exercise. And that can stop misfolded proteins. A balanced diet with antioxidants from fruits and vegetables reduce oxidative stress, which will damage proteins. Supplements, again, NAD, but you can also use quercetin or EG, CG from green tea, promotes cellular health and repairs and maintains proteins. And then there's also some more proteostasis boosting compounds, such as rapamycin. So rapamycin is an interesting medication that came out of Easter Island. It was named in honor of the Rapa Nui, which are the people of Easter Island, and they got this substance from one of the volcanoes. Easter Island is the only place on Earth where rapamycin has been found, and they were able to. They used it initially for organ rejection, but found that mice would live longer if they were given rapamycin. So now it's used in anti-aging, and one of the properties is to prevent protein misfolding. So it's been very interesting. A lot of people use it 3 times a week for those health benefits. All right, stem cell exhaustion. So this refers to the decline in the number and function of stem cells as we age. So that could be very problematic. Stem cells are undifferentiated, meaning they have the ability to develop into different types of cells. Like it can become a stem cell, it can become a muscle cell, a skin cell, a blood cell. It just depends on where it is dispatched to. There are different types of stem cells. So there's like hematopoietic, mesenchymal, neural stem cells. So there's the whole world. Again, books and books and books. You can get a PhD in stem cells. But aging and accumulated damage, when you have stem cell exhaustion, it causes the DNA stress, damage, oxidative stress, reduced stem cell production, declining function, senescence, impaired niche. So the niche itself is the local environment in which the stem cells exist in. Telomere shortening. So remember the protective caps of the chromosomes, they shorten with cell division, and this leads to cellular senescence and then chronic inflammation. All right. So the list of what diseases come from stem cell exhaustion is it's very long. So just in general, some big picture, you can get weakened tissue repair and regeneration, age-related diseases like we've already talked about, cancer, loss of skin elasticity, a weakened immune system. And then how do we prevent it? How do we stop it? Diet, exercise, all the stuff that we've just talked about, diet, exercise, intermittent caloric restriction, NAD can help. But just a note here, stem cells are being used experimentally for joint and cartilage repair. So the stem cells can become mesenchymal stem cells, which can regenerate damaged cartilage. It's used to try and regenerate bone tissue. It's used after heart attacks to help regenerate cardiac stem cells. It's used in wound care to help chronic wounds and burn injuries, for skin regeneration, neurologic. They're being explored as treatments for neurodegenerative diseases, blood disorders, diabetes, liver disease, and you name it, even hair regeneration. There's a lot of interest in hair regeneration with stem cells. All right, so the next 4 categories that I'm going to talk to you about, I consider root causes that need to be addressed because they are largely responsible for all of the stuff that we just discussed. And if we can get control of these, then we can optimize our health and well-being. So chronic inflammation. As we age, inflammation increases. We call it inflammaging. And there's certain things that happen because of this. So you get the cellular senescence, which we were talking about, the mitochondrial dysfunction and oxidative stress. Chronic inflammation leads to chronic infections, immunosenescence, the accumulation of damaged molecules, visceral fat, which is the bad fat. This is the fat that builds up around your organs and then causes organ dysfunction. Subcutaneous fat, in contrary, you have a limited amount of subcutaneous fat, and it actually protects your all your vessels and keeps them warm, temperature regulated, and offers a rapid source of fuel for the body. But it's visceral fat that we have an unlimited capacity for. And it drives pro-inflammatory cytokines and all the bad stuff that we know about with excess fat. Glycation, is a process where sugars are attached to molecules, and they can accumulate. They also increase oxidative stress, oh my goodness, microbiome changes. Your microbiome, your gut microbiome is, you're actually more microbiome than you are human. You have trillions of microbiome, and they start to shift with age, and that can lead to dysbiosis or leaky gut syndrome, where the intestinal lining becomes more permeable. And when that happens, it triggers an immune response, inflammation throughout the body. People start developing autoimmune conditions. So usually if somebody has autoimmune condition, I start with the gut first, and we move from there. Environmental toxins, lifestyle choices, hormonal changes. So with the loss of estrogen and testosterone, you have inflammation, like severe inflammation. Estrogen has anti-inflammatory effects, and its decline after menopause is what is responsible for most of the horrible symptoms that you may get. Age-related conditions in tissue, so cartilage and joints wear down, leading to osteoarthritis, which is basically inflammation of the joints. The thymus shrinks, allowing inflammation to persist unchecked. Telomere shortening happens, which contributes to the inflammatory process. So there's a lot going on here. So one of our key factors that we need to do is control for inflammation. Now, hormonal changes. I see hormones as the foundation of healthy living. You want to optimize your hormones as you get older. We do a lot of things. We replace a lot of supplements and vitamins and minerals, and we even replace thyroid without thinking too much about it. But, everybody freaks out when it comes to estrogen and testosterone. They even replace DHEA and pregnenolone and melatonin. They're all hormones, guys. So there's nothing different. I know there's the scare. Everybody's afraid of getting cancer, but estrogen doesn't cause cancer. There is never been a link in any study between estrogen and cancer. So menopause marks a significant drop in estrogen levels occurring between 45 and 55. And one of the features that happens, because the loss of estrogen leads to bone loss. It leads to loss of protective effect in the cardiovascular system, which estrogen helps maintain cholesterol levels and promotes blood vessel flexibility. So women are more at risk for heart disease. Actually, 25% of women will die from heart disease, which is like 10 times the rate of cancer. So you should be more afraid of a cardiovascular event because most of those women, the first time event will be deadly. So, and that usually occurs in the menopause years. So between the ages of 45 and 55, 25% of women will experience a cardiovascular event, and 62% of them, it will be a fatal event, and it will come in with no warning. Skin and collagen. Estrogen maintains skin elasticity and collagen production. It kills me to see all the menopausal women coming in for Morpheus treatments who don't want to replace collagen with estrogen. And it's really, your skin is thinner, drier, and more prone to wrinkles. And Morpheus can only do so much. You need collagen. You need estrogen. Estrogen has been shown to activate telomerase, which is the enzyme required to maintain long telomeres. You want long telomeres. Testosterone declines gradually in men and precipitously in women. Testosterone is critical for muscle mass and strength. If you don't have muscle mass and strength, you go into old age being frail and sarcopenic, and you're most likely, your mortality rate skyrockets. Bone density. Testosterone helps maintain bone density. It certainly increases libido and allows for more pleasurable sex because you have more lubrication, more desire, and you don't have the problems of dryness, itchiness that women have who don't have appropriate levels of testosterone and estrogen. It also influences energy, motivation, and mood. We have melatonin and growth hormone, which are really important for regulating cell tissue, cell growth, tissue repair, muscle fat distribution, bone density, health. Melatonin's for sleep. We all are quite familiar with melatonin, it is a hormone. It's over the counter, so anybody can get it anywhere. Just make sure you get your supplements from a reputable source. Thyroid regulates metabolism and energy in the body, and as we age, thyroid function slows down, and it leads to lower levels of particularly T3. A decline in thyroid will slow down your metabolism, which causes weight gain, fatigue, and sluggishness. Okay, it's not because you're eating more or less and exercising. Maybe you're not exercising as much and you think, oh, I'm getting weight, I'm getting fat because I'm not exercising. That's not true. You're getting fat because your hormone levels are declining and they need to be fixed. Cognitive functions, hypothyroidism can also affect memory, concentration, and mood. And hair and skin. Insulin resistance. Insulin's a hormone that regulates blood sugar levels, right? Allowing glucose to enter cells for energy. You get insulin resistance because estrogen regulates insulin sensitivity. And as you lose estrogen, you lose that sensitivity and you become more insulin resistant, which means that insulin's only job is to store glucose, to give it to the cells. And if the cells won't take it because they're resistant, then they store it as fat. And that's another reason you're getting fatter. DHEA, which is dehydroepiandrosterone. It's a hormone produced by the adrenals, and it declines in age. That can lead to loss of bone density and muscle mass and immune function. And cortisol increases. And the one thing that does go up, it's the one thing you don't want to go up because it is the main stress hormone. Chronic elevations cause immune suppression, bone and muscle loss, weight gain, and cognitive decline. All right, next one. Gut health, another big one. Gut health plays a significant role in the aging process, influencing many aspects of physical and mental well-being. Your gut microbiome is made up of bacteria, viruses, fungi, and other microorganisms living in the digestive tract, and it has a profound effect on metabolism, immune function, inflammation, even cognitive function. As we age, your gut microbiome and digestive system accelerate aging process. So gut dysbiosis is associated with chronic low-grade inflammation. They produce pro-inflammatory molecules that contribute to systemic inflammation, and it's the key driver in aging, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, arthritis, Alzheimer's. Leaky gut and immune system dysfunction, they cause the gut barrier to become more permeable, which is leaky gut. And now once the gut is compromised, toxins, pathogens, and undigested food particles enter the bloodstream and trigger an immune response. A lot of people start getting autoimmune conditions as they go through menopause. Nutrient absorption, you have to have a healthy gut to absorb nutrients, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. If you don't have a healthy gut, then you can't, then you're going to be micronutrient deficient and nothing you have is going to work properly. So poor nutrient absorption leads to deficiencies in vitamin D, B, calcium, which are required. And vitamins and minerals you have to get as an outside source. The body doesn't make them, it just utilizes them. And if it can't utilize them, you just don't have them. And it causes huge havoc on the body. Oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction. It damages cells. There's a gut-brain axis. So, I have people come in, complain of headaches, and I'm like, all right, let's test your stool. And they're like, what? But there's a huge component between the gut and the brain. What happens in the gut influences strongly what's happening in the brain. So your headaches could very well be related to dysbiosis. Weight management and distribution. Visceral fat is highly inflammatory, contributes to insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, heart disease, diabetes, and a healthy gut microbiome can reduce the accumulation of visceral fat and support healthy weight management. So getting your gut under control can help you lose weight. Hormonal regulation. The gut microbiome plays a role in regulating the hormones such as estrogen and testosterone, and an unhealthy gut can disrupt that balance, leading to symptoms associated with menopause, andropause, which is menopause for men. All right, metabolic efficiency is decreased with the aging process. You have reduced energy production, impaired cellular repair and regeneration, increased oxidative stress, accumulation of cellular waste, impaired glucose metabolism, reduced fat oxidation, increased fat storage, decreased protein synthesis and muscle loss, hormonal changes. I mean, there's a lot going on here. And it's also linked to 13 different cancers. So if you have metabolic dysfunction, you are at very high risk at this point for a variety of different cancers. All right, so we've identified 4 root causes: inflammation, hormonal imbalances, gut health, and decreased metabolic efficiency. But how do we manage this? And what the heck do we do first? So we have the running themes here. So the running theme through all of this was have a healthy diet, drink water, exercise. I'm going to say 2 to 3 times a week, even if it's just walking, getting sunlight 15 to 30 minutes a day. Don't overdo it. Supplement, which ones? Because we talked about a lot of supplements. Which ones do you personally need? Managing your environmental toxins. I use an app called ewg.org. You can download it and look up all your favorite products and see if there's cancer in it, because most of them do have carcinogens, known carcinogens in them. And your skin is the biggest organ of your body. So if you're putting on, especially in the shower, if you're taking a hot shower, your pores are really open, and then you put these shampoos on with carcinogens in them. I mean, that's most likely, that's a huge concern for cancer. Stress management, sleep. You want to get REM, at least an hour of REM, at least an hour of deep sleep. I use an Aura ring to follow those. Avoid smoking and alcohol. Maintain a healthy weight. Intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting doesn't mean like a 24 hours. You do 12 hours, right? Like let's say you stop eating it by 8 o'clock at night and you don't start eating until 8 o'clock in the morning. That's a 12-hour intermittent fast. That's doable. Caloric restriction therapy such as red light, PEMF, cryotherapy, sauna. There's a variety of different medications, and we'll talk about how to target what you need specifically. Hormone replacement is fundamental, as far as I'm concerned, for everybody in this age group, reducing inflammation and improving gut health. So Kesta, how do we treat? What do we do first? So how can we test for these things? How do we know what you need, what you don't need? Because having too little of something is not good, and having too much is not good. The body needs to be in homeostasis. So too much calcium, for instance, causes hardening of the arteries, calcifications, high blood pressure. Too little iodine can cause frequent infections. But how do you know specifically what you need? And this is where testing comes into play. So, of all the things that we talked about, there's a lot of them don't have direct testing. So cellular senescence, proteostasis, and stem cells do not have clinically available direct, indirect, or biomarkers to follow at this time. So we just have to go on clinical history and assumption. DNA damage. There is a test in the Dutch urine test that can tell you if you have oxidative damage to DNA. It's called 8-OHDG, and it's part of a bigger urine test that's done to assess your hormone status. There's also telomere length testing that can be done. I wouldn't do telomere length testing without micronutrient testing, only because telomere length testing will tell you if your telomeres are shortened, but it doesn't tell you what to do, which is, problematic. It's like, oh my God, what do I do? So you need another test for that. The immune system, you can check CBC, CRP, immunoglobulin levels, and mitochondrial function. We use the metabolic analysis. We can indirectly tell you how your mitochondria are functioning. Now, the first thing I like to do is stool testing. So stool testing is an important assessment for overall gut health, which has a key role in aging and well-being. The gut microbiome includes trillions of microorganisms that are living in your digestive tract and influence many areas of health, including immune function, metabolism, inflammation, even cognitive functioning. So this has a ton, everything that you can see here. This is part of the GI map test. It offers invaluable insights into gut health, which plays a central role in your well-being. I think everybody should get a gut stool test done at least once, ideally once a year. I know all this stuff gets to be expensive and you're like, do I really need to do this? But if you're having issues and you're not aging in reverse, or you're just starting the process, gut health is really should be mandatory. I obviously can't force you to do it, and it can be expensive, but it's absolutely worth doing because you have to know what you're dealing with in order to fix it. I can throw all kinds of supplements at you and we can hope and pray that they work, but it's much better to do a targeted supplement protocol, because the supplements get expensive too. So, why take supplements if you don't even know what they're doing? The Dutch test, this is, again, I told you this will tell you DNA damage, but it's specifically, more importantly, it's telling you about your sex hormones. So it'll give you an evaluation of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. As your estrogen's declining, the Dutch test provides insights into your estrogen levels, estrogen metabolism, helping to assess for conditions such as breast cancer and cardiovascular disease. Testosterone levels, it will go through your testosterone breakdown. It breaks down into different forms, and we can see how that's doing. And then progesterone, we can see your level of progesterone. But if you are 50 or older, I can tell you have basically no progesterone at this point. The Dutch test will also monitor cortisol and stress responses. So it does a 24-hour stress response. So it'll see how your cortisol levels are upon awakening, which is really, really important because your cortisol spikes around 4 a.m. to wake you up. And if you don't have that, it means you are just like adrenally depleted. It also evaluates DHEA levels and metabolites. The DHEA is the precursor to estrogen and testosterone, and it's crucial for maintaining energy levels, immune function, and cognitive health. It'll assess melatonin, your androgen metabolism, the oxidative stress, and then it's not a direct test for thyroid, but it does give us some understanding of the thyroid, which is really helpful. Then doing labs is really helpful, your standard labs. And then we do stuff to really look at cholesterol. Cholesterol has been villainized in the media. Everybody thinks cholesterol is bad, but cholesterol's essential, right? Your brain needs cholesterol. All of your cells need cholesterol. And there's studies out there that show the lower your cholesterol level, the higher your mortality rate. So why we've demonized cholesterol, I have no idea. So we use an extensive panel to, really evaluate whether your levels are appropriate or not appropriate. Just a blanket, take a statin because you were in the hospital is very dangerous. The statins, there's studies showing statins lead to diabetes. They cause muscle pain, ache, and they lower your cholesterol, which is exactly what they were designed to do. But the question you should be asking is, do I want my cholesterol levels? Do I want them low? Because if you look for studies that say statin and cholesterol, you'll find glowing reviews of how great statins are at lowering cholesterol, and they're absolutely amazing. But if you do a Google search for low cholesterol and mortality, you're going to find all the studies that talk about the all-cause mortality increase of up to 20% in patients that take cholesterol lowering drugs like statins. So that is a discussion to have with your doctor. Now, micronutrient testing evaluates the levels of essential vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and antioxidants in the body. So this provides personalized nutrition, targeted supplements. I think this is really, really important. And again, this stuff can get expensive. So doing the GI map test, the Dutch test, the micronutrient test, it can be a lot. So you might have to pace this out. But I think I would do stool first and then micronutrients second, because you need micronutrients to function. You need them. Your hormones need vitamins and minerals. And if you don't have enough stomach acid and you can't break proteins down into amino acids, you need to know this, right? It's really, really important. And I get a lot of people saying, oh, well, this influencer said I should take NAD, and this person said I should take magnesium, and this person said I should take calcium. And do you think I should? And I'm like, Maybe. I have no idea. If you've ever seen a mineral wheel, and you can Google it, there are like hundreds and hundreds of connections between all the vitamins and minerals. And if you take too much calcium, you displace other minerals, right? And it causes harmful effects. Too much calcium can be very detrimental to the body. So how do you know if you have enough calcium? Well, you need to do micronutrient testing. And this will give you the supplements that you should be taking. So you can take them. I mean, you can buy them over the counter. Nobody can stop you from buying micronutrients. The question is, are they really helping you? Maybe you're just wasting your money, or maybe they're actually doing damage and they're costing you a lot more money. So is it worth doing micronutrient testing? Absolutely. At least once a year. And it improves telomere length, right? We talked about the telomeres. And this is why I said earlier that I wouldn't do telomere length testing without micronutrient testing, because if it comes back and it says your telomeres are shortened, you're like, oh crap, what do I do? Well, the answer is you need to supplement with micronutrients. But which ones do? You need the micronutrient testing. So you can add on telomere testing to micronutrient testing if you want. Or you can just assume that as you're aging, and if you haven't really done anything, that they are shortening. And the best way to do it is targeted supplementation to fix that. So that's just what we're talking about here, is nutrients known to impact telomere health, and particularly, and these directly affect them: vitamin B, cysteine, zinc, magnesium, copper, manganese, selenium, vitamin C, E, glutathione. So should you replace all of them? I don't know. You might have excess zinc. I don't know. Maybe you aren't even methylating your vitamin Bs. What is going on, and what type of magnesium? This is the kind of stuff that micronutrient testing will tell you. Next thing we like to do is body composition. We do this in the office. We do this free. If you walk into our office anytime and say, can I do body composition? And say, sure, come on in. It takes literally 30 seconds. So it's bioelectroimpedance, and it will analyze fat and muscle and the proportion. So it'll tell you how much skeletal muscle mass you have, how much body fat you have, what the body fat percentage is, your segmental analysis, which is your arms, legs, and core. Total body water analysis. Are you drinking enough water? And your visceral fat score. That one's always disturbing, because when you find out you have a lot of that visceral fat and a lot of body fat percentage, it's very disturbing, and you feel compelled to do something about it. And of course, we can help. That's why we have the body composition analysis in the first place, is to help you visualize exactly where you need help. And just a quick note on subcutaneous versus visceral fat. So there's two different types of fat. Subcutaneous fat is the fat that's, it's a little pooch, below your belly button, and sometimes above the belly button. Subcutaneous fat is really not dangerous. It protects your vessels. Temperature control. It's easy access for the body to get a much needed fuel source. It's very easy to get fuel from subcutaneous fat. You have very limited capacity. So it's very individualized how much subcutaneous fat you can have, but there's a limit, and it might be 5 pounds. It might be 10 pounds. You might be able to tolerate 15 or 20 pounds of subcutaneous fat. It's all very individual. And then it starts to spill over into visceral fat. So the more fat you get, then it starts accumulating around the organs and in the muscle fibers. And you have an unlimited capacity to store visceral fat. So you might have 10 pounds of visceral fat. You could have 1,000 pounds of visceral fat. There is no limit to the amount of visceral fat, and it's extremely, extremely dangerous, very inflammatory, and it starts destroying your organs systematically. So some subsets of patients that come in to us, they're either overnourished with low muscle mass, overnourished with adequate muscle mass, adequately nourished with low muscle mass, or adequately nourished with adequate muscle mass, which is usually rare. But this is, these are the different ways that we focus on the different subsets of patients that come in, and how we help them with training. And basically, just your skeletal muscle mass, when it's decreased, decreased muscle mass ultimately causes decreased functional capacity. It is absolutely something that you want to maintain as you age, going through menopause and into old age. If you do only one thing, make sure it's preserve muscle mass. Now, metabolic analysis, I had mentioned this before, we can use metabolic analysis to indirectly evaluate your mitochondria function. And basically we put this little device on and it evaluates the flow of CO2 and O2 that at a resting state. We can also do an active state. And in the active state, it uses heart rate and power output to determine these 23 biomarkers, which by themselves, this looks very scientific-y and whatnot. So on this next slide, I will show you the biomarkers give us insight into your biological age, your ischemic, if you have ischemic heart disease, heart failure, COPD, asthma, metabolic slowdown, metabolic inflexibility, mitochondrial dysfunction, diabetes, brain ischemia, sympathetic nervous system overactivation. So we can tell you a lot of things just from how you breathe. We're able to tell you metabolic dysfunction and nutrient absorption. So we get a rate that's called RER. And if your RER is closer to 0.7, you're metabolizing fat and more fat than carb, which means you're in a healthy metabolic state. If you're closer to 1, above 0.85, then you're in an unhealthy metabolic state. And one of the nice things is that we can tell you how to fix it. So we do an active metabolic test as well. So as you're exercising, we can see how you oxidize fat, if you're oxidizing it effectively. If you're metabolically inflexible, you will use carbohydrates and much earlier on in the process. So fat is oxidized in the mitochondria. We said that earlier, but I've said a lot of things, so you might have forgotten. But it is by measuring fat oxidation, we can tell you about your mitochondrial functioning as well. And this is just a graphic of how fit people, what their curves will look like. So this is fat versus carbohydrate as fuel. This professional athletes, their power output, they'll have greater power output for a longer period of time. And then you see where it crosses over at the X. That is their crossover point. It happens much later than, let's say, somebody who's moderately active, where the carb to fat crossover occurs earlier. And somebody with metabolic syndrome, they don't use fat at all. They're only using carbohydrates, which is why they constantly have to eat, because they're always hungry, because they're unable to use fat as a fuel source. It's a huge problem. But we can fix that. So you will receive, if you do the metabolic analysis, you receive, it's like a 20-page explanation of the information that we got. And we can tell you your aerobic capacity, your cardiovascular fitness, if you're efficient at burning fat, what your metabolic rate is. And then we can tell you what types of exercise you should spend the most time on. This is very customized, very specific to you. So if you, the 3 main types of training are interval training, cardio training, and resistance training. And in this particular case, it's suggesting that 60% of exercise should be resistance training, and maybe a little bit of running and a little bit of interval training. We can create from just your breath. All you did was breathe into that tube. We can give you a training program of where and for how long you should be maximizing your heart rate in different exercise capacities. So going from 0 weekly exercise to 90 minutes per week, that's not a lot, guys. You can reduce your risk of dying from all causes by 14%. And it's because of all of the reasons that I talked about earlier. All of that complicated, beefy science stuff drills down to all you need to do is 90 minutes of exercise. That's all you have to remember. If that's the only takeaway that you get from this, know that it's doing all of the things that I've talked about, even if you don't remember any of them at this point. 90 minutes per week is what you need to remember. All right. So we also can do an active test where you're running on a treadmill and we run you until you're so exhausted you can't go anymore, which usually only takes about 5 minutes, the way that we do it. and it'll give you your VO2 max. Your VO2 max is your strongest predictor of how long you are going to live. The higher the VO2 max, the longer you will live. It's the maximum rate at the rate at which you can utilize oxygen. The more oxygen your body is able to use, the higher your VO2 max. So what happens if you're not metabolically fit or you have poor cardiorespiratory fitness is that your body will stop using oxygen and it'll convert to lactic acid. And that's where it's really painful. It hurts, right? Like when your muscles start burning, that's lactic acid buildup. And once you convert to that anaerobic metabolism, you're about to fail. And we can see that on an active test. So one of the best ways to enhance metabolic rate is through maintaining or increasing muscle mass. So another thing that we do individually for people is strength and stability testing. We use force plates and grip testing to measure how strong you are, and we can follow this over time. So this is a really powerful predictor of your longevity as well. So, can you do a single leg squat? Can you do jump up and down? Can you balance yourself? So there's a series of tests that we do that are quite simple. So for the last part of this, I'm going to go over a couple case studies, and then we'll wrap this up because this was a lot. I know it was a lot. So let's say you have a 52-year-old female with complaints of photoaging, weight gain, and brain fog. One of the first things that we're going to do are a stool test. This is going to evaluate the weight gain. And you're like, how does that work? Well, again, an altered microbiome can make you fat. The one thing I want to stress here is that calories and exercise or lack of movement are not making you fat. Okay, there's other things that are making you fat. I promise you there's a bunch of other things that we can address that will be way more effective. If you take a bad microbiome and you transplant it into a healthy fat within a matter of weeks, they've done tests on this. They're in rats. Fortunately, we're not transplanting microbiome in humans, but no other changes. Everything else controlled. A bad microbiome will make that rat fat. So we need to fix the microbiome. So again, even if you're having weight problems, you're having headaches, you're having autoimmune conditions, all of it starts with the stool test. I might also test hormones to see, especially with at the age of 52, there's a good chance that her testosterone and thyroid levels are pretty low. And if they're low, replacing those two in particular will rev up the metabolism and help her lose weight. A micronutrient test would be optional in this case, but strongly encouraged because if she's not getting the right micronutrients to support hormones and to support weight loss, then all of this is going to just be icing on the cake, whereas we want the whole thing. And just doing some comprehensive blood work on her so we can see the problem that we're going to have here is chronic inflammation. We have hormone imbalance, gut health issues, and she's going to have metabolism issues just based on the complaints that she has here. So our solution would be stool testing, potentially hormone replacement. I'm assuming that there's, especially at the age of 52, I know her testosterone's low, so the weight gain is probably coming from a lack of metabolism. But my question would be, does she need thyroid as well? And then targeted supplements. So if we know which micronutrients she's deficient in, we can actually give her a list of things and consolidate them. Like there's a lot of supplements that have a lot of crossover. So maybe instead of curcumin, we're using resveratrol because it hits this, and that. So that could be important. We can add on stuff like methylene blue, that's what MB is, NAD, glutathione with red light therapy. We can do skin treatments, medical grade facials, radiofrequency microneedling, neurotoxins, fillers. There's lots of stuff that we can do for photoaging, but you really have to have the core, and the core is collagen. If we don't have collagen, we can only do so much. And if you're okay with minimal results, that's fine, but really building back up that collagen is going to be essential. And microneedling, no matter where you have it done, can only do so much if there is no collagen in the skin. All right, long COVID. We also treat stuff like this. So long COVID affects 100 million globally, with 22 million right here in the US. There are like 200 different symptoms, but the majority include neurologic symptoms. Most consistent deficits are working memory and executive function. There are no approved treatments for these symptoms, but what studies have shown is that there is hope and there's a possible intervention. So we're dealing with a hyperinflammatory state. So controlling for inflammation is step one. We didn't talk about infusions, but hydrogen peroxide is one of the most powerful antioxidants that exist. It can be inhaled, it can be used IV, sub-Q, eye drops. You can even create a hydrogen bath. There's other ways that we can treat long COVID, including the use of methylene blue. NAD helps, glutathione. So we have a protocol that we use for long COVID. So if you know anybody that's suffering from this, we have had some really good results with our protocol that we've been using. Weight gain, we always need to, again, address gut hormone and micronutrients first. We can start on a GLP-1 if somebody has weight gain. So GLP-1 is semaglutide, also known as Ozempic. GLP-1 is a hormone, which is one of the reasons I use it, because I like hormone replacement therapy. But to get things rolling, we need to look at what's going on. Why was the weight gaining happen in the first place? Is it just because the loss of hormones is causing inflammation and altered gut? Or is there another source of inflammation? Is there a decrease in energy expenditure? Remember, calories out always balance to calories in, and it's like money. If you make $5,000 a month, then you have $5,000 a month to spend. If you spend $10,000 a month, you have to start to take out loans, right? And if you don't make more money, you'll eventually go bankrupt because you can't pay back the loans. That's how your body works. You can't eat 1,000 calories and expend 2,000 calories a day. What happens is your body adjusts to only having 1,000 calories to work from. And remember, fat storage is not the first thing to be targeted, right? You can't say, I'm going to reduce my calories, so now body, I want you to, take from the fat storage. That's not what happens. Your fat actually gets preserved because the body's like, oh no, there's a famine. What do I do? So if you eat 1,000 calories and you only have 1,000 calories to expend, okay? You cannot decide how to spend your calories. Your hormones decide. And you need calories for your brain to function, to regulate temperature, to digest food, to detoxify, to generate energy. You have to have calories, okay? And your body decides. If you've ever seen dieters, they're always cold and miserable and fatigued. And it's because they don't have enough calories. So you can eat, actually with the right metabolism, if your testosterone and thyroid are optimized, you can eat 10,000 calories and not gain any weight. And this has been proven again and again and again. But it does have to be real food. You can't eat processed food, junk and sugar and not gain weight, because the cells can't use that. The insulin gets spikes out of control, and then it stores all of that crap as fat. All right, Parkinson's disease. The cause of Parkinson's disease, you have cellular senescence, DNA damage, loss of proteostasis, chronic inflammation, decline in mitochondria, and stem cell exhaustion. There isn't one thing that's going to fix this. There is the peptide FOXO4 DRI that can remove cellular senescence, but it's not going to fix everything. It's not a cure. It can help slow down the disease. I've heard of people using stem cell infusions. We certainly use stem cells in our clinic, but this also is not a cure for Parkinson's. Red light therapy and methylene blue are also powerful to fix decline in mitochondria, and NAD infusions can help with the loss of proteostasis. So there's options in Parkinson's if people are open to trying other things. Sexual dysfunction in men and women. So they might have loss of hormones. You get loss of lubrication, loss of sexual desire, loss of sexual functioning. Men experience erectile dysfunction when their testosterone is too low, and women experience dryness, atrophy, and painful sex. They might start using lube, and they're like, even the lube doesn't work. So if you find some really great lube that fixes that, that would be one thing. But really the only thing that's going to fix painful sex for women is to, ideally, you're going to replace estrogen. If you're unable or unwilling to replace estrogen, we do have a machine called Empower that will increase lubrication by remodeling the vaginal canal using heat and or microneedling of the vagina. It sounds awful, but it's actually it's very effective, and we do numb the area, so there's minimal discomfort. So your fountain of youth, this is the end, guys. So if you want to maintain youthfulness and health and live long, you want to live to 120, 150, or like Dave Asprey wants to live to 180, you have to have a healthy gut. So stool testing, you have to optimize your hormones. I mean, once you lose your hormones, that's it. Like all these disease states start coming in. It is not coincidental that people start to develop heart disease, cancers, and the effects of aging as soon as you lose your hormones. It is not coincidental at all. So optimize your hormones, improve metabolic flexibility, adequate muscle and strength. You do this through exercise. You exercise to do these things, not to lose weight. Maintain a high VO2 max. We can help you establish what your baseline is and then help you to improve it. Get your body compositioning done so you know where your starting point is, and then we'll trend it out over time. And most importantly, maintain a healthy weight because that is critical to all of this. So if you're going to live to 180, this is your formula. This is your fountain of youth, and we are able to help you at the Philly Wellness Center. So we encourage you to scan our code, set up a call with us, talk to us about where you are, where you want to go. And this is what we specialize in. So I hope this was helpful. I'm really, thrilled that you joined our program here today. And I look forward to speaking with you at a time in the near future. Thanks.